This is so late. Hey everybody, it's your pal Smiley, and today we're talking about one of my favorite heroes, the big red cheese himself, Captain Marvel. The good one. I intended for this to come out a couple of weeks ago to coincide with the release of Shazam Fury of the Gods, but life got away from me. Anyway, for those who don't know, Captain Marvel first appeared in Wiz Comics number 2 in 1940. The character and his ilk were acquired by DC in the early 70s, changing the title to Shazam due to legal issues with Marvel over their first of many pretenders to the name. Following Crisis on Infinite Earths, he, along with many of DC's other acquired characters, were folded into the newly fused canon dubbed New Earth. Released in 1987, written by Roy and Dan Thomas, with art by Thomas Mandrake, Shazam: The New Beginning was intended to be a modernized reimagining of Captain Marvel's origin for the new continuity, the same way Man of Steel and Year One were for Superman and Batman, though it did offer some changes from the previous origins to keep things fresh. Issue 1 begins, like many hero origins do, with parental death. A young Billy Batson is being entertained by his Uncle Dudley's magic act when they're delivered the devastating news. Dudley, wholesome figure he is, doesn't hesitate to try and comfort the boy and accept him into his home. A few days later at the funeral, Billy is approached by his long-estranged uncle, Dr. Thaddeus Bodog Savannah. Yes, that's his real name. A few weeks later, the two men are in court battling over who should get rightful custody of Billy. Despite Dudley's pre-existing relationship with Billy, Savannah starts swaying the judge his way due to Dudley's sole employment being his, at best, mediocre career as a stage magician, whereas he's a respected college professor. Outside the courtroom, Billy is approached by his cousins, Savannah's children, Beauticia and Magnificus. Again, yes, those are their real names. They tell him how much they'd love it if he came to live with them and their father, and how selfish it would be to deprive Dudley of his beloved magic career just to raise him, an act Dudley has no reservation about doing. Not wanting to take his uncle's dreams from him, Billy rushes into the courtroom, demanding to be sent to Savannah, even going so far as to chastise Dudley, belittling him for his life choices to ensure he wouldn't question the decision. Thus, custody is awarded to Dr. Thaddeus Boondock Savannah. Savannah doesn't even wait until they've left the courthouse to show his true colors, chastising Beauticia for feeling sympathy as Dudley walks away, dejected. Later, they arrive at Savannah's dilapidated Dickensian home. He sends the older children away back to their college dorms, leaving him alone with his new charge. After telling Billy never to touch his super special secret door, he throws the boy into his barely converted bedroom storage closet, whapping him in the back of the head for talking back, and going off to order fancy new lab equipment with the financial windfall of his late brother-in-law's life insurance. The next day in his new school, Billy attempts to fight off some bullies the way he thinks his dad would have, getting his ass kicked for his trouble. Upon returning home, he finds the special door open a crack, sneaking down to his uncle's lab to hear him admit that he only took Billy in for the insurance money, and will send him away to military school at the first opportunity. Fleeing from the lab, Billy tries to go back to his beloved uncle, only to find he's gone to Albuquerque on tour. Running off into the rainy night, Billy stumbles over a trash can, and is approached by a strange, shadowy man in a subway tunnel. He followed the man down into the tunnel, somehow knowing that he could trust him, eventually coming upon the 7 deadly sins in all their horrifying glory. As the man disappears, Billy enters the chamber to find a decrepit old man with a massive stone suspended precariously above his head. The old man, claiming to know all about Billy, introduces himself as Shazam. He tells Billy to speak his name, and as he does, the magic lightning strikes and he's transformed for the first of many times into the world's mightiest mortal. Billy assumes, based on his experience with Dudley, that it's all just special effects, but the wizard assures him it's real, memories of the previous timeline's Marvel families flashing through his mind. As the string holding the slab above the wizard's head frays, he warns Captain Marvel of the impending threat, his ancient enemy, Black Adam. The good captain is fairly nonplussed, impressed by his new physique. The wizard laments his choice, saying he should have started with a girl this time. The wizard tells him what kind of hero he is destined to be, a champion of right, crushing evil from this world. Seeing the threat about to snap, Captain Marvel yells for the wizard to move, unthinkingly repeating his name, as the magic lightning strikes again, sending him back to the outside of the tunnel as the slab finally falls. Back in his original form, Billy tries to force his way into the tunnel, speaking the wizard's name again. Using his newfound powers, he breaks through and flies down, finding nothing but a sealed-off, unfinished passage. With no idea what else he can do, he walks off again into a dark, stormy night, unsure of what's to come. As issue 1 ends, we cut back to the lab of Dr. Thaddeus Boondoggle Savannah as he finishes his mad machine, releasing Black Adam from his prison of 5,000 years. Issue 2 starts with Black Adam wrecking Savannah's lab, speaking what I assume is supposed to be hieroglyphics? Anyone who knows, tell me what this crap says. Mercifully, the wisdom of Zehuti allows him to speak English after a few sentences. Though intent on killing Savannah to ensure he can never send him back, Savannah is able to convince him to instead keep him as an advisor, needing someone to help him understand the modern world. The pair fly off, landing atop the Golden Gate Bridge as Adam declares his intent to conquer this world, just like he always planned. Savannah already silently plotting his downfall. Meanwhile, Billy is trying to get a bus ticket so he can get to Uncle Dudley, but doesn't have enough money. Utitia appears, apologizing for how she and her brother lied to him about what their loving father would be like, and gives him the money he needs for the ticket. After a bus ride that almost bores him to death, he arrives at the theater where Dudley is performing, but Billy can't get in because Dudley's show is before an R-rated movie? Is this a thing in the 80s? Pardon my squirrely ignorance, but I've never heard of a place where stage shows happen as an opening act for movies. So he goes around the corner and transforms, getting hit on by the ticket counter girl as he goes by. Inside, Dudley is performing his act, a pair of inbred hecklers in the front row. They darken their pants as the captain grabs them from behind and puts the fear of gods into them. He volunteers for Dudley's next trick and destroys Dudley's magic box to be theatrical, tearfully reuniting with his uncle. Later that night, Billy explains the events of the past few days, Dudley pointing out how Captain Marvel bears a strong resemblance to Billy's father, before Billy trashes the hotel room with his lightning. Too poor to take public transport, the duo start flying back to San Francisco, Dudley riding Cap like a magic carpet. The pair stop at a Greasy Spoon for lunch as a yokel comes in, ranting and raving about a UFO. Billy decides not to look gift horse in the mouth and takes the opportunity to really test out his powers in the field. He buzzes several military jets before Black Adam slams into him midair. Captain Marvel does his best to fend off his ancient enemy, but is forced to let him go, taking the hostages with him and ending issue 2. Issue 3 opens as Dudley and Captain Marvel finally return to San Francisco, hoping to avoid the nosy widow Peebles as they enter their apartment. After dodging Peebles' banana bread, a news report announces the kidnapping of Middle Eastern dignitaries, and a call for any possible information to go directly to station manager Emily Thickert. Billy dives for the phone so he can share all he knows, but Dudley stops him, reminding him that he doesn't really know that much, and can't really explain how he knows what he does. Billy feigns agreement, but as soon as Dudley is asleep, he flies off to the station to share what he knows. He barges into Thickert's office, and she listens to his mad ramblings until he falls asleep. While he's out, she rifled through his pockets and called Utitia and Magnificus to take him back, but he wakes up and flees before they find him. In desperate need of answers, he returns to the blocked-off subway tunnel where the Rock of Eternity had once been, breaking through the wall and finding the rock behind it, as well as Shazam's ghost, who regales him with Black Adam's origin. Thousands of years ago, Teth Adam was chosen by Shazam, and endowed with the stamina of Shu, the swiftness of Heru, the strength of Aman, the wisdom of Zehuti, the power of Atum, and the courage of Mehen. Apologies if I said any of those wrong. Initially, Adam carried out his duty, uniting the lands under the king and even building the first pyramid. But he grew increasingly arrogant, seeing the people as ants in need of someone to rule them. Even going so far as to kill the king, only to be sealed away in another dimension by the wizard. Accepting his purpose, the captain goes back to the lab of Dr. Thaddeus Booty Jam Savannah, having finished beating his children again. Magnificus tries to disable Captain Marvel by throwing a presumably expensive piece of equipment at him, but is knocked out with a pimp slap. Just as Black Adam bursts in, leading to a battle that wrecks a good chunk of the neighborhood, only ending as Savannah blasts Captain Marvel from behind with the secret weapon he'd been saving to use on Adam. He demands Savannah destroy it after Captain Marvel is dealt with, ending issue 3. The final issue begins with Captain Marvel strapped into a device that will send him to whatever pocket dimension Black Adam had previously been held in. President Reagan comes on TV regarding the kidnapped dignitaries and, as one would expect, states he won't negotiate with terrorists. He will send them missiles, but that's a completely unrelated matter. Sivana suggests letting a few hostages go to tell tale of how powerful he is, but Adam has a better idea.
Here are your messages. You have 30 minutes to move your car. You have 10 minutes. Your car has been impounded. Your car has been crushed into a cube. You have 30 minutes to move your cube. Hello, Mr. Burns' office.
Is it about my cube?
Sivana, perfidious as he is, tries to strike a deal with the big red cheese, which of course is immediately shot down. Just as he's about to throw the switch, he gets taken back to his youth as a book smacks him in the head, thrown by Uncle Dudley. He's ready to beat Sivana to a bloody pulp, or would be if the sniveling wretch didn't pull a gun like a bitch. Before Sivana can put two and two together and realize that Billy is Captain Marvel, he changes back and the pair take him down, though Dudley takes a bullet to the arm. Billy reveals his powers to Sivana, who finally confesses to killing his parents, before flying off to his final battle with Black Adam, as Dudley calls the cops. The two mythic marvels create massive waves and wreck the landscape. Adam's sheer ruthlessness puts Cap on the back foot, but the thought of all the innocents drives him to keep fighting, throwing a massive chunk of mountain at Adam. Black Adam chastises his foe for how weak and pathetic he is as he flies away, tail between his legs, or so he thinks. In reality, he's leading him back to Sivana's lab, changing back to his human form before he arrives. He takes advantage of Adam's assumption that he's just a weak child, thinking back to the bullies he faced earlier. Stealing his resolve, he chooses not to fight, instead tricking the arrogant fool into his own downfall. With that, Black Adam disappears into a pink extra-dimensional haze. All his enemies defeated, Billy transforms again and rushes to find the hostages still held beneath the sea. He sets the plane down on land before quickly changing again, claiming to have saved them all with a device Sivana used to kidnap them. Smashing Sivana's machine and reuniting with Dudley, the ordeal is finally over. As a result of his bravery, Billy is given the spot on the K-Wiz news team, his first report, of course, being about his part in the rescue operation and his ordeal with his nefarious Uncle Sivana. On top of that, Dudley is up to replace the channel's kids' entertainer, Bumpo the Clown. Apparently, the broadcast reaches all the way to Guadalajara, where we see Sivana one last time, getting shit-faced and plotting his vengeance as the focus is slowly drawn to the worm at the bottom of his tequila, implying it's Mr. Mind, or that he's going to look for him. Who the fuck knows? Thus ends the tale of Dr. Thaddeus Boobalicious Sivana. For now, anyway. Well, Billy's story ends as he begins his interview with G. Gordon Godfrey, leading into his prior first appearance during Legends. Sadly, despite how good it is, this story was retconned out in 1994 by Jerry Ordway's Power of Shazam. The only part that was really kept was Billy retaining his identity when transforming into Captain Marvel, rather than the two essentially being separate entities trading places. Otherwise, it was a return to form for Billy on the streets, having run away from his malicious Uncle Ebenezer. This version of the Big Red Cheese instead was said to exist on Earth 85, though he did show up a couple of times after this. First in a 4-issue story in Action Comics Weekly, the short-lived period where Action Comics became an anthology again. Then a single appearance in Power of Shazam 27, amid various other alternate universe versions, including ones based on Monica Rambeau and the version from MF Enterprises. It's pretty disappointing that they erased it. It's a great story, the art is solid, and compared to similar books of the time, it's easily one of the best. Regardless of its canonicity, it was still a solid entry in the history of one of DC's most eternally underappreciated heroes. But throughout the myriad of retcons, reboots, and reimaginings, one thing always remains true: that the greatest heroes can come in the smallest of packages. Jesus fuck, I can't even say that with a straight face.